Welcome to week 9, everybody. If you're new here, hi. Welcome to This Cat Can Ball, the show where we highlight one player who's largely been unknown, either to have been riding the bench for a long time, been drafted late, or in some cases not even drafted at all. But they decided to show up this week, and we're giving them their moment in the spotlight. Week 9, which means we are officially over halfway through the season. I kept harping on how 17 games meant we didn't have definitive lines as far as a quarter, halfway, or 3/4 through the season, but we can now say that at one point in the past 7 days, we eclipsed the halfway mark. Now, what does it mean when we get into the second half? That means we can start whittling down the players that are going to win the awards. Not given, but they're pretty locked up. Dak Prescott's going to pretty much run away with Comeback Player of the Year. Jamar Chase is going to take Offensive Rookie of the Year. Those two are sure bets. It's not even worth betting because they're going to take it. Now, I was looking at some sites. One of them was about Vegas betting odds. And right now, the front runner for MVP is, well, it's a pretty common choice. I don't know why it just never occurred to me, but Tom Brady. And with very good reason. This guy is he's been solid, 22 years now? And he has the Buccaneers in line to maybe get that top seed in the NFC. We'll see. And another one that I saw high in the ranks, I think it was for Offensive Player of the Year. Don't quote me. Well, it depends on the site. There are so many that are gauging who's going to win whatever award, so it doesn't really matter. I could say it's my personal site. I don't even have one. But Josh Allen is still high, and I understand when the season started because he came off a great year and he's had some pretty good games. But this past week, if no one's keeping track at home, they just lost a close game to the Jaguars. And if you're thinking, like, did they have some kind of rebirth in Jacksonville and all of a sudden they started kicking ass? No, they're still a really bad team. The Bills fell to them in a game that only totaled 15 total points. Jaguars won 9-6. You know, I'm kind of wondering where this offensive juggernaut is, especially if you're going to consider him for an award. I would have expected them to at least put up one touchdown, but that's just me. And you also consider another loss was to start off the season losing to the Steelers, who, granted, they're on a 4-game winning streak now, but at the beginning of the season and for the first half of the first half, I would have called it the first quarter, but we can't do that anymore. They weren't doing that hot. Now they're picking it up, but the Bills have some very questionable losses for being considered such a powerhouse in the AFC right now, especially now that we're getting into that playoff stretch, you know? Now, this is an award show, and there's going to be one player who is going to show that he can ball. But another player that I want to give a shout out to is Cordell Patterson, who is, well, he's like a wide receiver / running back / return man for the Atlanta Falcons. And I really like him because those are the kind of players I really liked growing up, that they couldn't really be, I mean, they technically had a position on a roster, but they were kind of utility men, so to speak. There were guys that, if any of you guys follow NFL, you'll know the names like Allen Rossum or Dante Hall, Mel Gray. Oh, another big name that you might know, if you didn't know Allen Rossum or Dante Hall, you probably know Devin Hester. He's probably considered the greatest return man of all time. That's arguable. Josh Cribbs with the Browns was another guy. He was like the Hester before Esther. Esther was a corner who was converted to receiver, and he wasn't that great at receiver. I mean, he wasn't terrible, but he wasn't like, wow, this guy's a good receiver. No, he was unbelievable return man. He took the opening kickoff to the Super Bowl against the Colts all the way for a touchdown. That's forever going to be his legacy. They were great in the return game. They were specifically just, you know how some players just have that one thing they're really good at it? Like there was this NFL, most people are not going to know who this guy is, but there was a guy named Sean Morey who was a special team player for the Cardinals about maybe anywhere from 10 to 20 years ago. He was incredible on special teams, like covering a punt, like to block the punt or to play what's called the gunner position on a kickoff. The gunner is the guy that just flies down the field and goes after the returner. And you can say everybody does that, right? But there's one guy who just kind of has a kamikaze attitude. And Sean Morey was ridiculously good at that. He would make Pro Bowls just based on his ability to possibly block or disrupt punts, to break up the blocking on a kick return as the kicking team. That was his thing, and he was just so good at it. He was technically a wide receiver, but he maybe only had call it 20 catches in his 10 years in the league. And what I love about them is that these are the kind of guys that on Madden, you want these guys returning the ball because they're usually fast, shifty. Cordell Patterson, who's probably 8th year, 10th year, don't quote me on that, but I I want to say it's around there, that he's had these many years of hanging out in the NFL, doing pretty well, but now it's kind of like, you know what, I can do a little bit of this, I can do a little bit of that, I can do a little bit of this, and the Falcons are letting him do a little bit of each, and he's doing a awesome job. People that have him on fantasy are noticing that, you know, I'm getting receptions out of him, I'm getting running yards, I'm getting receiving yards, I'm also getting return yards, so he's really proving to be that all-around weapon. Okay, now to get to the award this week, it's all about getting the right opportunity, right? Sometimes you gotta wait a while. Some guys had to wait years. Some guys had to wait to finally get on the NFL roster. The guy that won this week, he's from the Denver Broncos. And bear in mind, the Denver Broncos, some people might have thought they were looking to tank the season because they traded their best defensive player to the Rams, Von Miller, one of the best pass rushers in the game right now, going to a team that has one of the best defenses. Just, you know, the Rams are slated to just steamroll their way to the title now. So Von Miller left Denver, right? That was probably their best player, the franchise player, the face of the franchise. So they might be looking to tank it, right? No, the guy that won this week is their 7th round pick from this year out of Ohio State, Jonathan Cooper. Now let's talk about this guy. Denver lost Von Miller, right? And you might be thinking, okay, well, that leaves a big opening on the defense for a pass rusher. So this guy might be the one that steps up, right? It's not always so. Usually having that great pass rusher is going to help someone else on the other side. You know, the Steelers have TJ Watt or the Browns have Myles Garrett. Being opposite those really good players, it's going to make you shine more. In this case, they took away Von Miller. The 7th round pick guy comes in. He goes up against the Cowboys, who have a great offense, a great quarterback who is a multifaceted weapon. Dak Prescott has a great arm. He's smart. He's mobile. And bear in mind, there is a big difference between a scrambling quarterback and a running quarterback, okay? Michael Vick was a running quarterback. Tony Romo was a scrambler. And for my money, I don't care what anybody says, Tony Romo is probably the greatest scrambler in NFL history. You can quote me on that. So the 7th round pick goes in, not necessarily in place of Von Miller, but he's being put into that pass rush role. How does he do against this great offense and also a team? Like, everyone's been high on the Cowboys with very good reason. They've shown it's not just hype. They are winning. This week, they did fall to the Broncos, but that in no way stops their momentum going into this playoff run. Against Dak Prescott in this offense, they did an amazing job. He put up 2 sacks on Dak Prescott. I think just getting pressure on him would have been enough to been like to cue Charlie right here. But no, he actually got in there and got 2 big sacks on him actually. One of them was for an 11-yard loss, one was for a 9-yard loss, 2 sacks for 20 yards. That's a whole series of downs. That's 10 yards. That's incredible. From a 7th round pick out of Ohio State. Now, Ohio State is a good school, right? I mean, there are some years where Ohio State fielded a better college team than some NFL teams. But he did have some serious hardships. And when I mean serious, I mean like he could have had a pacemaker instead of going into the NFL. He had a serious heart problem. Forgive me for not knowing exactly what it is. Turns out I'm actually not a doctor. Going up to the draft, like I think a day before the NFL draft, you know, like where careers are made or broken within a weekend. Going into that draft, he had to have 3 8-hour procedures on his heart because he had an irregularity. By the good graces of the Denver front office, they still saw in him that he had the potential to do great at the next level. They took him, granted 7th round, and look what he did. Going up against Dak Prescott and that great Cowboy offense, 2 sacks without Von Miller there taking a lot of the attention. You knew everyone would have been on him, right? So that would have let this guy, Cooper, open to get some stats. He didn't have that safety blanket. He was all by himself. And you look what he did without the aid of a great guy like Von Miller taking all the attention, and against Dak Prescott and the Dallas offense, you got to look at him and think,
this cat can ball, man.
So that's going to do it for this week, folks. I really hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. I love comments all the time. The interactivity is so great. Be sure to also hit the bell to be notified. These do come out every week, but just in case you forget about it, the bell will alert you when they do come out. One more time, like, comment, subscribe, click the bell. I am Omar, and I will see you guys next week.